Hello and welcome to a brand new season of the PSGL. This is the inaugural Formula 13 race here in Bahrain, the first round of season 29. I'm Tom Cans in the commentary box. Alongside me is Jake Warrior. And Jake, a brand new season is upon us now. How are you feeling for this?
I'm so excited. It's been incredible over the last 6 months to see the growth of PSGL, and this is sort of part of a culmination, really. We have our first ever F13 race, which is now our lowest PS tier, but we've still got plenty of great talent in here, and so many exciting names, some that have been here since the very beginning of PSGL, so it's going to be exciting to see what happens tonight, and I, for one, definitely cannot wait.
I most certainly cannot wait to get started, and of course it is my first gig at the PSGL, and it's a gig which I'm most certainly looking forward to, with so many drivers who are gunning for glory, going for victory over the course of this championship. So let's run down on who is driving where for this season. I'll run down the full-time drivers, because I know there's a couple of reserves that have been called in for this evening anyway. So first up is McLaren. We've got Milan, who is alongside F13 Mo. Alpine, we've got Mr. Grumpy alongside Joshi Washi. Then it's Aston Martin, we've got Dion Knoll alongside Inosia, otherwise known as Billy. At Red Bull, we've got Dino, who is alongside Steck. Alfa Romeo, we've got Sabetti and Tomo Jr. Williams have Jehofin and Gareth Hall. At Mercedes, we've got Gerber and Clausen. AlphaTauri have Donk Danks and Mustafa. Ferrari have Luke Toured and Camrules. And finally, Haas have Sarking and Istrai. Now, the two reserves who have been called in tonight are Dan WDL, and the other reservist called in is Lennon the Man MUFC. Both of those drivers have been called in place of both AlphaTauri full-time drivers. They are Don Danks and Mustafa. So those two have been called in for tonight. We are waiting for a couple more drivers to join in the lobby before the 18-minute qualifying session does commence. And Jake, we've got a lot of newcomers in the PSGL. A lot of them have joined the F13 grid. But I suppose, given what you've seen last season in F12, which was the previous lower tier in season 28, who are you tipping for the title even before a wheel has been turned?
It's going to be a really close one, I feel. Like you say, we've got almost over half a grid this season is brand new drivers, so that in itself brings a big degree of unpredictability to it. But out of the drivers that I saw in F12 last season, the couple of names that instantly come to my mind, you've got Milham. He finished 4th in F12 last season. He's in the McLaren this season. He will be one to look out for sure. You've got Tomo Jr., who is in the Alfa Romeo, and he was 5th in the F12 tier last time, and was probably the most consistent, I would say, out of the drivers that are in this tier this time around. So, we know consistency can win titles a lot of the time, so that for me suggests he'll be one to look out for. But certainly for tonight at least, the driver that I'm keen to see how they do is Mr. Grumpy. He took the PSGL Legends Social win here at Bahrain last week, and he got a podium in F12 at Bahrain last season to boot as well, so this is clearly a good track for him, and he's proven to be quite consistent in the lower PSGL tiers over the last few seasons, so who knows, this could be his moment to take the glory.
Yeah, I would say that Milan has potentially the best chance possible, because he finished the highest of all the current drivers in F12 last season. He was 4th overall, which was including 2 victories in Azerbaijan and Brazil. And another driver to look out for, I think, in Bahrain anyway, is Sabetti, because he only took 1 victory in season 26 that he did, the last victory he took in any PSGL race, and of all places, it was in Bahrain, so he could be one to look out for this evening.
Absolutely, and this is usually quite a popular track among both fans and drivers alike. It's got a good mix of corners, we've got plenty of overtaking spots, we've got the 3 DRS zones to boot as well, so, overtaking is certainly something I'm expecting to see a lot of this evening. And that usually means that strategy will play a big part as well. It's not just a case of follow the leader. You can get overtaking done here, so that's good news. That's good news for drivers who maybe don't have the qualifying session they're looking for. And as well, it should produce a really unpredictable race tonight. I'm I'm so excited to get this season underway.
So let's run down on the calendar, because to let you know how many races the PSGL will be running, well, for the championship anyway of season 29, we have 13 rounds plus the PSGL Race of Champions, which will see out the championship, although to my mind, as far as I know, it is 13 rounds that have been contested. Bahrain is the first of those tonight for F13 on the 12th of August. The next one will be in France, followed by Spa and then Zandvoort, and it's Monza for round 5 on the 9th of September. Then it's Silverstone the following week, and it's Austria that closes out the month. Then we got China on the 30th of September, and then we got Japan, Canada, Mexico, USA in Austin, and then the final round of the season will be at Interlagos in Brazil on the 5th of November for F13. Well, the session's already started, but there's still a bit of time to talk about whilst the guys are all going on their out laps and about to start their flying laps. Bahrain's an interesting circuit, Jake, because if you remember back in the days where it was held during the day, people didn't like Bahrain as much because they felt it was more like a procession kind of event. Whereas since it moved over to a night race in 2014, it's very much got people liking the circuit more, and I'm so pleased to hear that from them.
I think the big thing that's really sort of changed in the transition from day to night, obviously from a visual point it looks so much more spectacular, but I think as well, when it was set in the day, the temperatures were so high that it just kind of turned into a bit of a tyre saving race, and that ultimately always leads to less overtaking, because obviously the more time you spend offline trying to overtake, the more you're going to cook your tyres. So I think since the change to a nighttime race, it's really helped with that. Drivers don't have to look after their tyres as much, and therefore you're seeing so much more overtaking, and it's really made this circuit come alive. And like you say, it's strange how it's almost gone from a track that people really didn't like to possibly one of the most favourite tracks on the calendar now for most drivers.
And of course it's hosted the opening round of the season this year, not for the first time of course. The first time Bahrain hosted the opening round of the Formula 1 World Championship was in 2006, and of course on 2010, where they had the longer configuration, which was quite something, wasn't it? And not to mention, Bahrain has hosted the Sakir Grand Prix on the outer loop for the penultimate round of the 2020 season, which was a classic. I really wish it could be in the game. Unfortunately it's not, but hopefully in future games it will be, and of course for the real life Formula 1 season, because I would love to see that again.
Yeah, it definitely brings something a little bit different. It almost feels like almost a bit like a sprint race type thing with the format of a track and everything like that. Thankfully they did away with that awful variant in 2010. There's no way to word it. It just added a twisty section where nobody could overtake and added a really unnecessary 30 seconds to the lap time. So thankfully that was just a one-off. We immediately realised that was an error. And in its current format, under the lights, Bahrain's really come into its own, and we're just seeing Tomo Jr., I believe, who's the first driver to start a flying lap.
Yep, so he's the first driver to start a flying lap. Tomo Jr., one of the newcomers in the PSGL, as far as I know. He wasn't competing in season 28, 27 or 26, so I can only assume it is his first competitive race in the PSGL, and he's already gone for a spin as he clicked the go. Oh my goodness me, he's clicked over the bump there, but luckily was able to keep all four wheels turning properly, but he has sustained some front wing damage there. That so easily could have ended up him being out of the qualifying before it pretty much even begun, to be quite honest with you, but he's got away with it there, Jake.
Oh, it's a huge moment, and like I say, I've never even seen that bump there before, so that was a huge hit the car took. And thankfully for him, it's not resulted in any terminal damage. It'll be interesting to know if there's any sort of side pod or damage to the car, because that is a thing on this year's game that you can have, and obviously that's not repairable, so that may affect him for the rest of qualifying. But yeah, it's a lucky escape for him, and hopefully he can sort of recover his composure and go again.
Well, F13 Mo, as we can see on screen, is another one of the newcomers. Oh no, he's not one of the newcomers, he's one of the veterans of the PSGL. Now, last season in F12, he was 21st overall with his best finish of 9th in Brazil. So he didn't score that many points, but I think with all his experience, he has a fairly good chance in F13 to finish, would you say, like top 10 in the standings?
Absolutely, and that was an interesting end to the lap from him there, where he pretty much lifted off the throttle pedal as he came across the line, And we've already lost 2 drivers in qualifying, so those are crashes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, 2 drivers have come together. Sabetti and Stee have come together at turn 13, and both of their sessions have come to a premature end without either of them setting a fast lap time. Now, that is very peculiar. We didn't see the start of the incident, but we've seen the aftermath. But yeah, what a very bizarre incident there, Jake.
That's something you very rarely see in qualifying. It's like, say, without obviously not seeing it myself either, so I don't really know what went off for that to happen, but it's a real big blow for the pair of them, and they're now got it all to do from the back of a grid for the race. And, you know, for some drivers, this might also be a bit of a practice as well, getting up to speed, so they've got that to try and get in the race as well, as Anosha MCFC, who I otherwise known as Billy, goes to the top of the pile on a 26-0. We got the first couple of times just starting to flood in.
Yeah, and following the Aston Martin is the team Mercedes of Gerber and Clausen. Now, Gerber's another interesting driver to look out for, actually, because he left after the first race of season 28, and this is his first race back. So I'm not sure how he's feeling for tonight. I don't know if he's been doing sim racing in other leagues before coming back to this one, but so far he's set a good time so far, 1:26.4, but the fastest man so far is Josh Iwashi, who's just posted a 1:25.7 in the Alpine, but there's plenty more drivers who have yet to set a lap time. Luke to Red has ducked into the pit lane. He's retired from the session as well, so he'll start no higher than 8th on the grid. Milam improves on the medium compound to go up to 7th place. Now, I wonder if he's going to try and start in the top 10 on that medium compound to save a pit stop in the race for him to go onto the hard tyres, whereas those on the softs are likely to do a 2-stop in this one.
This strategy is such a difficult one to call around here, because I think if you can stretch out the tyres, soft to hard is the way to go. But it's so marginal, and you lose a lot of pace at the end of a stint, so it's a good shout for Milam. If he can qualify inside the top 10 on those mediums, a medium to hard strategy is possibly the best way to go about this. I reckon that's what you're going to see a lot of the drivers outside the top 10 go for. But if you could start in the top 10 and go for that strategy, then it's kind of a double win in my eyes. So he's 7th at the moment. It's going to be hard for him to stay there, but we've already lost 3 drivers in qualifying. So, you know, that's removed 3 potential obstacles in his way.
Most definitely so. So Milan having a good session so far. I think he's going to try and maybe improve on his time on the mediums, although he is harvesting energy now, so I doubt that he's going to be improving his time. We'll find out what his second sector is like. Yeah, he's well off the pace in comparison to where he was. Istrai is another one of the newcomers in the series this year. There's so many newcomers, it's endless. It feels like 2010 when we had 5 newcomers on the Formula 1 grid for the 2010 Bahrain Grand Prix. Of course, Nico Hulkenberg was one of them. Istrai will be looking to go for glory here tonight in Bahrain, and on a circuit where a lot of drivers would be happy to be racing now. I'm sure he'll be very happy to be racing here. 2 sets to 1, 28.0, but he's invalidated at that time, so he'll have to go again.
Yeah, not the start he would have wanted. Starting his first lap a little bit later than some of the others. We've got a few drivers out there on medium tyres following Milam's strategy. We've got Mr. Grumpy and AFRL Kovalainen on the medium tyres. Kovalainen is another reserve driver who's taken place of Dion Newell, who isn't here tonight. So a late replacement there, and looking to go for the alternative strategy on that one, which isn't a bad, like I say, it's not a bad way to go, and you're going to see a few more drivers try and manage it. In fact, just as I speak, AB53 MOH, I'm going to have to check what his name is, the best way to pronounce that, because that's going to be a difficult one all season, but he's followed his McLaren teammate and got onto the mediums.
And whilst you say that, Kovalainen has just gone for a spin on the exit of turn 2. He's not binned it in the wall, he's just avoided the barrier, he's just letting the Alpine go past. But that's his light ruin there, and he'll have to go again. But at least he hasn't sustained too much damage there. So a little bit of a learning curve there for the Aston Martin driver, who is in place of Dion Knoll, who isn't around tonight, which is a shame, because I would say he's one of the candidates of going for the title this season. But
big crash for Grumpy, and he's out of qualifying.
Yeah, Grumpy's lost it on the exit of turn 7. He must have caught the outside curb whilst he was on a hot lap. We've just seen Kovalainen go past him now. So we'll go to the AlphaTauri next, which is Lennon, who's just going past it. And I think he just caught the outside curb, Jake, and just binned it in the wall.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be on board of him there, and yeah, he just took too much of that curb, planted the throttle, and the car could not live with the torque demands, and it's something we see a lot on this game. You know, it's certainly more of an effect on this year's game than on 2020, that once the back end of the car goes, you know, you're pretty much a passenger. There's not much you can do. You're going straight to the scene of the accident. So, real unfortunate there for Mr. Grumpy. Someone I backed for the win. That's my first commentator curse of the season. Sorted as Lennon, the man, has gone for a spin as well, and he's lost his front wing. That's around turn 12, I do believe. So, yeah, a few drivers struggling to...
Oh dear, he's just reversed. Yeah, he's just reversed into the part of the Aston Martin there of Enosia. Now, luckily, Enosia was on an outlap, but he had to take evasive action to avoid him. Now, I wonder if the stewards will look at that, because that was a dangerous return to the racetrack there from the AlphaTauri. But I suppose the only saving grace was that his car was ghosted.
No, absolutely. You have to be a bit more careful with that. Tomo Jr. is the next driver to go for a spin through that very same corner, turn 12. So we're seeing a lot of action already in this qualifying section. I'm just looking at Gerbier here, currently in third place. He's on another lap. I'm going to see if this does anything for him. He was third. He stays third, but he does actually find 3 tenths on his previous lap. So a sizable improvement, just no change in position.
I think he may try and go for another lap here. He's not low on fuel at the moment. He may just have enough ERS in there, but the ERS is going to pretty much become empty by the time he gets around, I would say, the end of Sector 2, which is not a good point to have, because you've got 2 exits of which you need to really get the power down out of there. So he may decide to come back into the pits and go on a final set of softs for one last dash attempt to get pole position. Now, Josh Iwashi is an interesting one, the driver who's fastest so far. He's back after a one-race ban that he has served at the final race of season 28 in Brazil for his shenanigans, apparently, in Baku. Jake, could you explain?
I've got to be honest, it's not something I actually caught, if I'm honest, but Josh Iwashi, it's going to be an interesting one, that one, because I feel like once you get something like a race ban, it is something that can hang over your head, and it's something that can affect you. You know, it's something that people almost remember you for, and you've got to just shake off that almost stigma that you might be an aggressive driver or you've done something wrong in the past. But I tell you what, setting a 125.7 straight out the blocks, that's one way to almost silence the critics in your own head as much as anywhere else. So definitely at the start of qualifying, he would have been looking for, and see if he can build on that, because that's a very competitive opening lap.
So we've just seen Clausen go second fastest behind Josh Iwashi. He's less than 3 tenths off the pace, but I'm sure there's definitely some time to be found. So it's not over until it's over when the checker flag does fall at the end of qualifying. We've got less than 6 minutes remaining. There's another yellow flag there. That'll just be drivers going around. I think one of the Alpines has just gone for a spin. Couldn't quite tell who it was. I think that's Jehofin, who is out on circuit. He's not yet posted a lap time. He needs to be careful, because I think one of the Mercedes is coming up behind him, who may be on a fast lap.
Yeah, Jehofin is really one of the true veterans of PSGL. He's been around, I think, longer than I have, which is saying something, really. I think he's been around possibly 8-9 years, and you know, he's such a legend. He did struggle in season 28, not a single point to his name, which for someone as talented as he has been in the past, he will be disappointed with that. So he'll be looking to put that right this season. And but it's not the ideal start. He hasn't managed to get a lap time in yet, and it's weird. We've got less than 5 minutes to go in this session, and we've still got 9 drivers that haven't done a lap time yet. Yeah,
Gareth Hall is still in the pits. Well, Tomo Jr. is back in the pits as well. Hopefully he'll come back out and redeem himself after nearly binning his Alfa Romeo in the barriers. And going to a saying about Jehofin, actually, his last top 6 finish, you have to go all the way back to season 26 in Brazil in F11 that he was competing in. And since then he hasn't quite finished in the realms of that particular area, because in season 27 his best result was 9th in Abu Dhabi, and like you say, in season 28, pointless.
Yeah, it's kind of his form just over the seasons just doesn't seem to have quite been there. Maybe this new game will give him, I know for some drivers motivation was an issue towards the back end of the 2020 game cycle, so maybe this new game will give him a fresh impetus. I certainly hope so for his sake, because he's a driver I would love to see score some points this season and get back to a form that I sort of remember him doing. I've had many good battles with him over the years, so I'd like to see him get back to that form. And, you know, nobody wants to go for a whole season without scoring a point. It's not something you particularly like looking at the standings. So it's something that he'll be aiming to put right for sure.
So Kovalainen's gone 10th fastest with his first lap time with a 27.5 on the mediums. Dino's gone 7th on the mediums on 27.0. So that's not too bad of a lap for him. He does go in front of Milan. And talking of which of Milan, believe it or not, he's failed to finish in 3 of his last 4 attempts in the PSGL in Bahrain.
Ooh, you get that sometimes. It's strange. I think not so much in the higher tiers, but certainly in the lower tiers, you get drivers that just don't get along with certain tracks, and then also they have tracks that they absolutely adore. It's difficult when you have a track that you know you have a poor record on, because there's no question about it. Milan will know just how bad his record is around here, and it adds a little bit of extra pressure onto you. So, and we've seen in qualifying, he's done a 27.3 on the medium, so the pace is there. But he's got to do it over the full 29 laps. You don't get any points in qualifying, so you know he'll be able to put that Bahrain record right tonight. But it's not going to be easy.
No, it's definitely not going to be easy. As Lennon, who's one of the reserves called in for tonight, he's on a faster lap that he set before. He posted a 1:27.8, which, in my opinion, is not as represented. Oh, he's gone for a spin. He keeps out of the wall, avoids the Ferrari that was behind him, and wisely reverses into the runoff area, and he'll be able to get going from there. But that was quite a scare there for London. I think it's another one of those getting caught out at turn 12. And I've said this in a lap guide that I've done, that you need to take a wider line, a slightly wider line into turn 12 to avoid the car spinning, because it is off camber.
Yeah, and I believe, unless I'm getting confused with somebody else, I believe that's a carbon copy of a spin he had about 3-4 minutes ago at that corner. So, you know, he's making that same mistake again, and that's something he's going to have to look out for, especially in the race when you've got, you know, a lot of fuel on board the car as well. You're really going to feel it through that turn. So it's just a couple of errors of that same corner. You know, the aim would be to try and learn from previous mistakes, but at the moment he is struggling at turn 12, and like you say, if you get that wrong, it's going to cost you a lot. So
Tomo Jr., who's yet to post a lap time, he's kept his car out of the wall so far and away from the bumps, and he's coming up to a Mercedes now. I believe that's Gerber, because Clausen's just started his final attempt. So Gerber wisely moves out of the way of Tomo Jr. Let's see what Tomo Jr.'s lap is like, because I would like to see how he does in comparison to the competition here, rather than just wait and see how he does in the race itself. He's coming over the line now, and I think it's going to be a 1:25.9. That's a great lap from Tomo Jr. There we go. So we have seen more of the true pace from Tomo Jr., one of the newcomers for tonight, doing a really solid job.
Yeah, just having a look actually. Tomo Jr., 5th place in F12 last season. He got a 4th place at this track, so he's got good past when it comes to Bahrain. So it's good signs for sure that he can deliver, but that lap time there really does. That might put Josh Iwashi under a bit of pressure now as the driver's starting to close in on his time. He's out there himself.
Guess what? Clausen
goes second.
Yeah, I was just watching him as he came through the last turn. Clausen very close to beating Josh Iwashi's time, but just misses out by less than 0.02 of a second. So it's advantage Josh Iwashi at the moment. He's on a faster lap as well, so Camrils is also opted into the pits. He's retired from the session, so 6th or lower is where he'll end up. But Josh Iwashi is on course for a better lap. He's nearly 1/4 of a second up from before by sector 2. So can he keep that momentum all the way through to the end of the lap? He's got no traffic to worry about as they're all on the start-finish straight now. So Josh Iwashi, all he needs to do is execute the last couple of turns, get the power down, use the DRS over the line. Is this going to be pole position for Josh Iwashi? And do you know what? I think he may well have got it. So Josh Iwashi improves by over 0.3 of a second. He's 0.4 clear now of Clausen. Clausen's on a slow lap, so he's not improving. Enossi is on a faster lap though, 0.3 up from before in sector 1 alone. So could he take pole position away from Josh Iwashi? He's through turn 11 now, and he's coming up towards turns 12 and 13. Is this Aston Martin driver going to put his car on pole position for the opening race of F13 in the PSGL? Nearly 0.6 up by sector 2. We just need to find a little bit more now, and he could potentially be on pole position, and if not, he'll most certainly get on the front row here.
Yeah, a little bit wide through turn 13. Can he carry the momentum up to the line? Here he goes then, foot hard to the floor. He goes across the line. P2 just misses out by 1/10.5. That's a great effort, but right at the death, and that's put him on the front row. But Joshy Washy, what a very impressive qualifying session from him. No one could touch him at the front. Anosha did his best, but just P2 in the end for Billy. Great end to qualifying there, but it's the Alpine driver that takes the first pole position of season 29.
And yes, so there's no points for pole position in the PSGL. The race does matter. Remember, there is the top 10 that score points, but it's different to real life Formula 1, which we'll go on to at the moment. But in the meantime, Joshy Washy is on pole position for the first race, the first ever Formula 13 race in the PSGL here in Bahrain, with Inosia right alongside him on the front row. Then it's Clausen and Tomo Jr. on row 2. Tomo Jr. with that brilliant lap he has put him on the second row on his PSGL debut. Then it's Gerber in 5th place, ahead of Milam in 6th. He had to set his time on the soft compound, which we'll have to start on. Camerals is 7th, ahead of Sarkin, and it's Istray and Ab53 Mo on the 5th row. Dino and Garapol are on row 6, followed by Kovalainen, Dan on row 7. Then it's Luke Tered, Lennon the Man, Steve, Sabetti, Jehovin, and Mr. Grumpy, who will start at the back of the grid. That was some qualifying there, Jake. What can we expect for in the race? Because I think we're going to be in for quite a surprise here.
I think we're going to see a lot of drama in this race. You know, we saw in qualifying a lot of drivers struggling, particularly through turns 7 and 12, just with the rear end of the car stepping out. And, you know, that's going to be something to look out for. We've got 29 laps to do here, so, you know, you might not be one of the quickest in qualifying, but if you keep it consistent, neat and tidy in the race, you could really score yourself an excellent result tonight. And keep an eye as well of us drivers just starting outside the top 10. The likes of Dino and Gareth, they did their fastest lap on mediums and qualified it up there in 11th and 12th. So that suggests to me that they might have some very good race pace. And of course, they can run the alternate strategy now too.
So we're less than 30 seconds away from the start of the formation lap. We'll run down on which drivers are starting on what tyres. We don't know what fuel loads they'll be on. I imagine there'll be quite a very difference between the guys on the grid in terms of maybe going for less fuel or more fuel, and there could even be a safety car that decides it as well. So there's all sorts of different strategies that have to be considered by the drivers as the formation lap is about to begin now. So we'll have a look on who is starting on whatever tyres. So the top 10 all starting on the softs, the rest all on the mediums. That tells you everything you need to know. Strategy is everything round the Bahrain International Circuit in Sakhir.
Yeah, it's going to be a real... Strategy's got a huge part to play here, and safety cars could throw in a real anomaly into the equation. One thing, of course, you don't get at Bahrain usually is a change of weather, but in a way that almost makes it even better because you've got such a variance in strategies, and this could really develop into quite a classic race. One thing as well to note on, you mentioned how the fuelers could be very different. I mean, of course, we've got no rich mix this year on this year's game. You know, if some of these drivers haven't done many 50% distance races yet on this game, it's almost going to be guesswork as to regards to what fuel to put in because, you know, you can afford to take a lot more out now that there's no rich mix, but, you know, you take too much out and you have to try and coast it home in lean.
Yeah. So Joshua Wash is leading the field around the formation. Nossia second, Clausen third. I wonder what Tomo Jr. must be thinking at this point because that, to me, is a higher position I thought it was going to be in. But keep an eye out on the likes of Mr. Grumpy and Sabetti because those two had finished in a fairly decent position in F12 last year. And I'd expect them to be making their way through the field. You just see Inosia almost closing the back on Joshua Washi. This is the formation lap after all, guys. So just take it easy out there.
Yeah, I usually there's a few mind games that go on the formation lap. But Billy there being right behind Joshua Washi. A little bit of a surprise. It's going to be interesting to see how the second and third place guys get on because I mentioned already that I still feel like their consistency is something they could improve on. So, you know, this is their chance to prove me wrong here. They've got good qualifying spots. Let's see if they can convert it over the course of the next 29 laps. It's going to be, I think we're going to be in for a lot of surprises here.
I can imagine so too. Can Joshua Washi convert his pole position into the race victory? He's going to be waiting quite some time, actually. Well, I say quite some time. Everyone is all on the start-finish straight now, so we are raring to go for the first race of F13 in the PSGL. Can Joshua Washi get off the line well? Can Inosia get the jump on him? Or can Tomo Jr. surprise everyone by blasting off the grid from 4th place on the grid? We'll find out in a few moment's time. Everyone's in position then, and when we wait for those 5 red lights to appear, when they come on and when they go out, we'll be racing at the Bahrain International Circuit in Sakhir. It's a lights out and away we go. Josh Iwashi gets off the line well, as does Clausen from 3rd place, as does Tomo Jr. who gets alongside the Aston Martin. So Josh Iwashi leads into turn 1, then we got the McLaren alongside. These 4 have burst into turn 1 there, banging the wheels there. Josh Iwashi's clear of the rest. Inossi gets back into 2nd place. It's Tomo Jr. who gets up to 3rd ahead of Clausen. Milam has made up ground in 5th ahead of Gerber. Gareth Hall's made up ground brilliantly up into 7th place. He's the highest of those on the mediums. Contact there between the Mercedes of Clausen and Tomo Jr. And we've got a virtual safety car already because F13 Mo is out of the race. He's crashed at turn 3, Jake.
Wow, what an incredible start to the F13 season. I'm not sure how Billy's still in 2nd place. He really bogged down off the start line there. Give Josh Iwashi all the advantage that he needed. He got away beautifully there. But Billy's found his way back up to 2nd. And then the top 4 is as you were, which is very surprising. The great starters there, though. You got Gareth Hall at 5 spots. Sabetti up 8 from 18th to 10th. And Mr. Grumpy now up to 12th as well. Well, it keeps changing between 12th and 13th. So, you know, you mentioned the experience of Sabetti and Mr. Grumpy, and maybe that's shown in just how they've dealt with that race start.
And it's not been the best of circuits for Ab53 Mo, because that's 5 times now in the last 5 attempts in Bahrain, the PSGL. He's not scored a point. He's finished outside the top 10 3 times, as well as a DNF in his previous appearances in the PSGL, and he's not going to be scoring points tonight, so he'll be hoping for better luck next week when the PSGL goes to France. We're back on the way then, and we've got a couple of drivers with penalties, particularly Dan, who gets a drive-through penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car, so he'll have to take that within the next 3 laps. And I think we've got a driver coming into the pits. It's one of the Mercedes in the pits, Gerber that is.
Yes, Gerber and Mileham into the pits. There was a contact between Mileham and Tomo Jr. under the virtual safety car, which got Tomo the
Tomo's gone for a spin. Sarkin's gone round at turn 1 there. Luckily, no contact was made between him or another car, and he's got going again. But Sarking's lost ground, and he's fallen well down the order to the back of the field. Sorry there, Jay, I interrupted you, but there was so much action going on at turn 1. All the cars were just basically fighting over the same piece of tarmac. We've seen Dino, who is in 11th place, or something like that, on the leaderboard. I think the leaderboard's currently incorrect, but he's inside the top 10 anyway, and he's fighting with the Williams of Gareth Hall.
Well, I'll tell you what, I believe Dino's now up to 5th place on those medium tyres when it all corrects himself out. But there seemed I don't know how this has quite happened, but the top 4 have suddenly got a huge advantage over the rest of the field. And Dino's found himself up to 5th. I think we've got Gareth Hall in 6th place now. So, yeah, the top 4 pulled hugely away at the front of the field. It'll be good, obviously, when the timing sorts out and we can see exactly what the gaps are. But, yeah, some great starts from those medium tyre runners.
Dino's leading a long train of cars now. He's in 5th place. It's going to end up being a DRS. Well, there's no DRS yet because we're still on the 2nd lap. But we've just seen Gareth Hall making a move, or thinking about a move, down into the inside at turn 14. Can't quite make the move stick. Inossia posting the new fastest lap of the race, but I expect that lap time to come down. And it's saying he's got DRS, but it's not. The graphic is currently on, but we are now on lap 3. So Gareth Hall, should he remain behind Dino at the detection point, he will have DRS on the back straight. We've just seen a move from the Alpine of Mr. Grumpy, who's made a great ground from the back of the field. He's up to 9th.
Yeah, we've got Dan WDL further down the field who's spun at turn 12, so his race goes from bad to worse. He got that VSC penalty, and now he's gone round to boot, so things not going the way that the AlphaTauri driver would have liked.
And Dino, who's just holding up Gareth Hall at the moment. Gareth Hall, one of those making a cracker of a start. And he's looking to the outside, though. He's got to watch the Alfa Romeo behind as well. And no change of position there. So Dino doing a very good job holding the field up. He's the highest of those on the medium compound, hence why those on the softs are shooting off into the distance. But it won't be too long before the mediums come into their own window.
No, absolutely not. And at the front as well, Billy on the last lap was half a second quicker than Josh Iwashi, so he's attempting to try and eat into that gap that the Alpine driver's created. But it doesn't look like on this lap, if anything, actually, it looks, if anything, like Clausen is starting to put some pressure on Billy for P2. So I don't know if Billy's had a difficult lap here, but he's going to have to look firmly in his mirrors here, because I think Clausen's in a great spot to grab P2 by the end of the pit straight.
I can imagine Clausen's going to have DRS all the way down the start finish straight, and the good news for him is that Inosia is not going to quite have that privilege. So Clausen, you can see the pace difference with the DRS. Pulls out of the slipstream to the outside. Is Inosia going to fight back into turn 1? The answer is no, and Clausen's through and up into second place. Good move there.
What on earth is happening here down towards turn 1? This is an incredible battle from P5 downwards, and Dino, who was down to 7th at one point, has grabbed 5th place straight back again, and you can see how close it's getting in there.
Camrose is in the wall.
Crash.
Yeah, Camrose is in the wall. He's out of the race. That could bring out the first safety car of the race, and the answer is that it has done. So Camrose, fighting along those half a dozen cars through turns 1 and 2, has lost control of the car. I think he lost it over the curves, probably got carried away through the backline that was going on, and he will go no further. No points for the Ferrari driver, and the safety car has come out, and I think that's come to the rescue of those on the soft compound, those in the top 4 in particular.
Yeah, they can now alter their strategy, make a pit stop now, and probably just look at making one more stop later on in the race. Maybe 2 sets of mediums might be the way to go for those top 4 cars right now. We've got another penalty to mention as well. Mr. Grumpy has got a 5-second penalty for hitting the back of Gareth Hall, so that's another big blow there. Mr. Grumpy making his way brilliantly through the back of the field, but that penalty will not help his cause at all. And we missed this because we saw Clausen make a move on Billy, but just looked again, and now Billy's backing up into P2, so Clausen was not in second for long. I wonder if down to turn 4, Billy managed to get the place back.
Yeah, because Clausen didn't quite have the best of exit out of turn 1 and over the coast through 2, which gave Inosia the advantage. And of course, Inosia had DRS as the top 4 make their way into the pit lane now. So Joshua Wassey's got a bit of a distance ahead of him, so he shouldn't really have to worry about. Having said that, he may need to wait until the Alfa Romeo goes past. But he's away anyway. And this allows Sabetti to move into the lead of the race. Jake, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I'm intrigued here, but, well, all the soft tyre runners that came into the pits there, they've all opted for medium tyres, but Joshi Washi has opted for the hard tyre. I'm not so sure about that. I don't think those will go to the end from here, so maybe he's looking at another soft tyre stint later on in the race, but the race leader going differently to everyone behind him, that's a bit of a risky strategy. Yeah,
there's other drivers entering the pits now as well, so everyone, apart from the top 7, have pitted at least once in this race now. So your race order is Sabetti, who's in the lead after starting from the back of the grid, so he's done very well to get up there. Then it's Gareth Hall in second, Mr. Grumpy is third, but he has got a 5-second penalty which he'll need to serve at his next pit stop. Then it's Luke Tourette in 4th place, Steve is 5th, Coverline in 6th, Lennon 7th, and Joshi Washi, who is the highest of those who has pitted, in 8th place and on the hard compound tyres. One thing we forgot to mention as well, Jake, is the point system in the PSGL, in case any viewers are new to this. The top 10 do score points, except it's 16 points for the race winner, then it's 12 for second, 10 for third, 8 for 4th, and then right all the way down to 10th place you get 1 point. And there's also a point on offer for the driver within the top 10 that gets the fastest out. So you can get a maximum of 17 points from a round of the PSGL.
Yeah, so to anyone who's new to PSGL, we don't use the traditional F1 point system, but essentially it kind of works out quite similar, really. You do get an extra reward for winning as opposed to finishing second. You get a 4-point advantage compared to 2 points between second and third. So you do get rewarded if you win the race. As we've got another incident here, Tomo's had an incident with Clausen under the safety car and has got a 5-second penalty. And I saw a bit of jostling about that. I don't know quite what happened, but I believe that's Tomo's second 5-second penalty of the race, because he had to serve one when he came in the pits initially. He's now got a 5-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags as well. So Tomo Jr.'s race just going from bad to worse here, while all this happening under the safety car. Yeah, and he's coming into the pits now. He may be able to take some of that penalty, actually, because in terms of the algorithm of the game itself, it does allow you to take that penalty even under the safety car, whereas if it was a drive-through penalty, you wouldn't be able to. He's needing a new front wing, so that's why he's pitting again. Yeah, and he's serving the penalty as well, which means he will drop. Maybe not right to the back, because we've got a few drivers that still haven't caught up to the train yet, but he's onto the hard tyre now. He might be looking to get those to the end. You know, estimated lifespan of these hard tyres is around 19-20 laps, but you definitely can't rule out the possibility of another safety car happening tonight.
No, it's very much possible. I mean, to be quite honest with you, with the battles that we had, if that's a sign of things to come, you know, if it all gets too much, we could well be needing another safety car, which will play into the hands of those on the mediums and possibly Joshi Washi as well, because he will be considering whether to go onto the soft or the mediums, depending on when the safety car decides to come out again. But Sabetti is out in front, so he's going to be the one with track position at the moment. He's on mediums that have done only 5 laps so far, 2 of which technically have been under the safety car. So you have to say Sabetti is in a very strong position to salvage a very strong result tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got clear air in front of him, and if he can get this restart right, he's got every opportunity to try and build a little bit of a gap while the inevitable fighting goes on behind, because obviously with the safety car coming out now, there's a lot of drivers that are not towards the front now that have some overtaking to do, and that inevitably will create splits within this train of cars. So it's a good opportunity for these guys at the front to maybe pull out a bit of a gap and utilise those medium tyres, which should still be in a good operating window. So this restart's going to be interesting. I don't think the safety car's going to come in on this lap, because we've still got Ishtry who needs to catch up to the back of the snake.
Well, what I was going to say was the safety car lights are still on anyway, so that's a clear indication that he's going to stay out for another lap. So what I was going to say was Luke Everett's just coming in saying someone did manage 24 laps in PC F2. 25 with a couple under safety car should be good. So to be fair for Joshi Washi, if superstition was to be believed, then he could well go to the end of the race on those hard tyres.
Yeah, maybe he was keeping an eye on the PC race yesterday evening and saw that unfold and maybe took that on board. It'll be interesting to see how it develops for him over the course of his race. We know he's got the pace off just based on how well he did in qualifying. And yeah, thanks Luke for the comment. Top commentator will be commentating the F1 tier on Monday. But all focus right now is on F13 and this safety car coming at the end of this lap. I'm excited to see what unfolds when those lights on the safety car go out.
I mean, it's anyone's game for the race win, quite frankly. Now remember, Sabetti has already won in Bahrain in the PSGL in season 26. Last season he was 7th in F12. In season 25 he was 5th in F6, and in season 24 he finished outside the top 10 in F6 as well, because F6 back then was the bottom tier. But I think given the previous few seasons under the F1 2020 game cycle, when of course it was a difficult time with what's been going on with the pandemic, therefore people were spending more time video gaming and all that, it's clearly expanded a lot, hence why we've got this F13.
Yeah, and you know, you've got to find, I guess, the light in what are tough situations, and that is that it has had a fantastic effect on the esports community and just league racing in general, and it's brought about this massive shift and this expansion that we've had over the last 12-18 months. So you know, there are positives to it, and we should be seeing the safety car come in this lap. Yeah, here we go, the lights are out, we're going to get ready, and it's going to be interesting to see just how Sabetti opts to play this restart and when he chooses to put his foot to the floor and try and catch out those cars behind him.
Given his previous experience in Bahrain, I think he's going to manage this very, very well, to be honest with you. I've got good faith in him that he's going to see these mediums all the way to the end, but he's got to watch for Gareth Hall, Mr. Grumpy and all that, because they're going to be fighting with him all the way down to the turn 1. So it's vitally important that Sabetti gets a very, very good restart here. Otherwise, it could end up being mayhem all the way through turns 1, 2 and 3.
Absolutely, and he's leaving it pretty late here. We're now on the pitch straight, and he's just going to try and floor it when the drivers are least expecting it. And here he goes, off he goes, and I think he's caught the drivers a little bit napping there, and you've got Gareth Hall and Mr. Grumpy going side by side up to turn 1.
Here we go on the restart then, so Sabetti leads, and we've got Gareth Hall and Mr. Grumpy going side by side into turn 1. Who's going to break the laces of the two? It's Gareth Hall who stays in front. Mr. Grumpy still within the car, staying alongside, side by side, and Mr. Grumpy gets up into second place. Hall goes over the Ralph area, but he's rejoined behind him. He's got the Ferrari alongside now. Looks to red, looks to get in on the around the outside into turn 4 they go. And it's the Ferrari gets up into the third place. So Gareth Hall going backwards on the restarts, but Sabetti doing a very good restart as we expected to lead the field out of it. As we can see, Anossia trying to make a move on Joshi Washi now. Now it's important that Anossia can get in front of him here because he's on the medium tyres, whereas Joshi is on the hards. And someone's in the wall. It's Clausen. Clausen's in the wall and gets it turn 7 and he's out of the race. Would you believe it?
What a disaster for Clausen. Had such a good qualifying and was running right at the sharp end up to that safety car, but it's all gone wrong for him here as we've got more changes of position. We haven't got another safety car, but disaster for Clausen, and not the start to the season he would have wanted. But yeah, you called it. Sabetti absolutely nailed that restart, and I tell you what, I loved Luke Toured's opportunism through turn 4 to go around the outside of Gareth Hall, and we've got Joshi Washi! Joshi Washi has gone!
Yeah, Joshi Washi's gone to the back of the field. I was just going to say, Anossi got in front of him, and that was why. Joshi Washi has gone for a spin, entering turn 13. He must have took a bit too much curb on the inside of that deadly turn 12 corner. And he's fallen to the back of the field in 17th place. Now he's got to with it all today from here until the checker flag.
What a twist to this race. Joshi Washi looking very comfortable with the strategy that he was on, but we know those hard tyres can take a few laps to really get to temperature, particularly when you had a safety car be out, and it looks like it's caught him out through turn 12, and he's got it all to do now, like you say, from the back of the field. He's got no damage, thankfully, I don't believe, but it's going to be tough from there on in. His advantage over his competitors, most notably Billy, has definitely gone down the drain with that one, as Mr. Grumpy is starting to put a lot of pressure on Sabetti for the lead of this race currently. And
given Mr. Grumpy's experience from last season, I would expect him to be one of those going for the championship this season, so I'm not too surprised he's fighting it out with Sabetti on this occasion. But remember, there's no DRS for the first 2 laps of the restart. We're on the second lap of that restart, so we won't be seeing DRS until the back straight before turn 4 on the next lap.
No, it's all just about trying to get yourself the best possible opportunity when the DRS does become active. Maybe saving that ERS, which, to be fair, Mr. Grumpy's doing a slightly better job of at the moment than Sabetti is, so he's in a nice position at the moment if he can just get as close as possible when the DRS activates. And you can see the top 3 just making a little bit of a run for it here. Gareth Hall lost 2 positions at that restart, and he's coming under pressure once again from Stee, so Gareth Hall just struggling a little bit since the restart.
So Stee going side by side with Hall. It's a drag race down to turn 1. Someone's gone for a spin. Is that the Mercedes and the Haas? I think it was. Either way, Stee going up the inside of Hall, forced him out wide, a bit of wheel banging there, but Stee's through. So Stee up into 4th place. Hall loses yet another place, but the good news is he's going to have DRS all the way down to turn 4, but so has Stee.
Yeah, it's just, it can happen that way. You lose 1 or 2 positions, and it almost becomes a bit of a habit. You start falling down a field, and it's a habit that he needs to arrest quickly, because he's losing out to a lot of people that are basically on the same strategy as him. So, you know, he's going to be racing these guys to the end, and right now his track position is not ideal, and he's now going to have Billy right up behind him as well, who of course has those pressure mediums on, having pitted earlier.
And Jehovin's off at turn 7. I think he's continued though, so he's able to get going again without causing any drama. Joshi has got himself back up to 13th place. He's just behind Istrai, and then 3 seconds up the road it's Tomo Jr. And we can just see Mr. Grumpy in the other Alpine line up and move now. He's desperate to get in front of Sabetti, but I think the tactic you've got to play is, once you get in front into turn 1, you could be under threat with the driver behind who may have the DRS instead of you.
That's it, you've almost got to think ahead. You've not got to just think, I need to get past this guy at turn 1. You've then got to think, how do I get my car in the best position to have the best exit up the straight down to turn 4, because you might get the move done into turn 1, but you leave yourself so vulnerable on the second DRS zone. Here we go though, Mr. Grumpy in a slipstream of the Alfa Romeo, goes defensive, does Sabetti, and keeps the position 4 now, but that will, of course, will mean Mr. Grumpy has a second dose of DRS down this next straight. Let's see if he can get the move done into turn 4.
So Sabetti going to the right before they get down to turn 4. Mr. Grumpy thought about him, maybe able to do a complete move around the outside. What a move from Mr. Grumpy to take the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix ahead of Sabetti. So he saw the gap round the outside, and with it being off camber as well, that gave him the high ground to get the job done. And Lutz Red is trying to complete a similar manoeuvre as they approach turn 8, but no cigar on that occasion. Lutz Red is in 3rd place. Steve Ford got a yellow flag in set to 1, but it's gone away quickly.
Oh, Tomo Jr.'s gone. He's spun at turn 7. Another driver who had a great start to this race, and it's going wrong.
His chances of points are diminishing at the moment. Tomo Jr.'s race going from bad to worse. But Mr. Grumpy, who's yet to stop in this race, remember, leads the Bahrain Grand Prix. Sabetti is 2nd, Lutz Red 3rd, Steve 4th. And in Nosia, you have to say now, with where he is in terms of track position, or in terms of the battle for the race win, he's got to be the favourite now, don't you think?
Definitely. I think Billy's in such a good... I think Mr. Grumpy and Billy are both in really good positions on their respective strategies. One driver I've just noticed, actually, I saw him make a move up the inside of turns 9 and 10, is Joshi Washi. He's already back up to 10th place, and he is running at some very good pace here on these hard tyres. So despite that spin he had, he's coming back into the equation as well. Let's of course remember, he may not have to stop again. So he's putting himself back into play.
And moving up the order as well is Anossia, who's going side by side with Steve. Steve getting his elbows out there, leaves enough space on the inside of turns 2 and 3, and the Aston Martin goes up into 4th position. Steve does have his time penalty, remember, so he'll have to serve that for when he comes in for his next pit stop. Anossia chasing after Lutzered, and Joshi Rossi's got 6 seconds in hand to make up as Sarkin comes into the pit lane, presumably for a new front wing. Not sure what damage specifically he's got. Well, I say he's got front wing damage, I've mentioned there, but he could have a floor damage. Oh, Milam's off!
Out!
Milam is off into the barrier. Will that be enough to bring out the safety car again? He's done the same thing. He's upside down as well. Would you believe it? Oh my goodness me.
That's a quite frightening accident at turn 7, and we got a virtual safety car.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised at that, actually. Thomas June's got no front wing to his car. But what a wild accident there for Milam. That's a horrific accident. I'd like to think, I hope he's okay as well. There was a very nasty shunt there for the McLaren. That's both McLarens out of the race now. And Milam, who we thought would be going for the race victory here today, considering his genuine pace, well, it's not going to be today for sure.
Just going to wonder here, are any of these guys going to try and take advantage of a virtual safety car and pit now? They're not. No, they're staying out. They probably feel like, yeah, here we go. It's been virtual safety cars ended, so he wouldn't have gained anything for us. So we are back underway. Billy finds himself to 4th, but we have got a couple of people in the pits, actually. We've got Steve and Gareth Hall both in the pits. What will be for a set of hard tyres, which they'll be able to take all the way to the end.
And of course, Steve will be serving his time penalty as well. I wonder if he's got front wing damage in all the collisions he's been involved with, but thankfully no. So he's able to get out on his way, but he's out of the points currently at the moment, but there's still some way to go yet in this one. Sorry, I nearly muddled up on my words there. But that just tells you how much action we have seen so far. Thomas Jr. continues to get penalised. His race goes from bad to worse, and he's calling it a day. What a shame.
Yeah, things just didn't quite happen. It was just, it all kind of unfolded for him. Just with every single thing that happened, there were so many penalties he had, and obviously then had the spin as well, so things just not working out his way. And it's a sad end to the race for him, but he can take heart from, certainly in qualifying in the opening stint of a race, there was some good pace in there, so he can take confidence from that and hopefully come back better next week at Paul Ricard.
So the pit stops for Steve and Hull has promoted Joshi Washi back up into 7th place. He's got just under a couple of seconds to make up on Dino, who is in 6th. But I would say now that those who are on the mediums will be starting to fall away by this point. So Joshi Washi will be coming into his own window very, very shortly in terms of the crossover between the mediums and the hards.
Absolutely, and he's brought down the gap to Mr. Grumpy, his teammate, down by around a second and a half as Mr. Grumpy hits from the lead of a race. He will now serve that 5-second penalty that he has, and now Sabetti takes over the lead of a race. Don't know for how long. He may come into the pits shortly. Luke Red also in the pits as well, and he also had a penalty to serve, so we're just see where these guys come out in sort of response to some of the guys they're fighting. And
Jehovin's gone for a spin at turn 12, another driver to fall victim of those bumps around that section, so he rejoins in 14th place, but no harm done to him or to any of the other drivers. So Inossi is back into 2nd place on the road then. Kovalainen up to 3rd. He's yet to stop as the Aston Martin driver, one of the reserves that's been called in for this evening, and what a job he's done so far.
Absolutely, he's not a driver I've actually seen anything of really in this race, but he's just quietly gone about his business, doing his own thing. And he's in line here, I would say, for some solid points here, if he can just keep his strategy going. Just running his own quiet race at the moment. Another driver who's just caught my eye, actually, is the Haas of Istrai. He's basically on the same strategy as Joshi Washi in front of him, and he's only 5 seconds away from him, so kind of from nowhere. The Haas driver has also found himself in a pretty good position. Well, Joshi Washi has managed to recover very, very quickly, I have to say. And someone's gone for a spin, and one of the Alpha tyres, it's Dan. Oh, he's spun just before turn 10, so he must have caught the bump at turn 9 and he's spun round. He's lost time in places. That's a very costly error for him, but he rejoins without any more drama. So Sabetti is coming into the pits for his only pit stop, presumably off the race. Inossia goes back into the lead. Yeah, we've got an Aston Martin 1-2 now as Kovalainen goes up to 2nd. I just want to say as well, fair play to Dan WDL there. He was very safe when rejoining the track. It's a very awkward place to spin now. You've got to be careful that there are no cars coming your way, so he did a good job there avoiding any more drama. And Westy Sabetti rejoins without his penalty. You'd imagine he'll be in front of Mr. Grumpy now. And indeed he is, even with that slight undercut from the Alpine. Sabetti has rejoined in front of Mr. Grumpy, and Mr. Grumpy's got, if he wants to win this race, he's going to have to pass Sabetti all over again, and he's got a gap to try and rein in first to do that.
And whilst he may think he's got a gap to make up on Sabetti, Sabetti's got 9 seconds to make up on this try. So Sabetti and Mr. Grumpy, and perhaps Luke Red as well, and Dino possibly, they are going to be on fresher tyres than Joshiwashi, Istrai, Kovalainen and Inosia. I would imagine that Inosia and Kovalainen, well, Kovalainen's got to pit in this race. Inosia, I'd imagine, is going to be pitting in again before this race is over.
Yeah, and Billy's really, MCFC is really going to be one to look out for here, because the likelihood is he will either go for another set of mediums or a set of softs. So he will be lightning quick at the end of his race, and we reckon we should probably see him doing some overtaking in the latter stage of his race. It'll be interesting to see how far up the grid he can get on that aggressive two-stop strategy that he's decided to go with. Right now he leads the race, and Kovalainen is going to pit this lap. Yeah, I was going to say surely it's time to get rid of those mediums and put on a set of hards. A slightly late stop, really. He probably could have afforded to pit a lap or two earlier.
Well, maybe, perhaps going a little bit fresher tyres, and of course avoiding having to wait for other cars coming down the pit lane as well. So
he's gone for another set of mediums. He's going to have to stop again.
I don't know if that's a false thing, but well, I say a false thing. I don't know if that was a false strategy call from Kovalainen, where he was meant to actually put the hards on. Is this something tactical, though? Because he'll need to probably go onto the soft compound before this race is over. So this is a rather aggressive strategy. Oh, he almost rejoined into the path there. Got the power down poorly coming out of turn one. He's trying to get his tyres up to temperature. He falls in between the two Red Bulls. Or they may get back on the inside here, but if he's going to... He may as well just go full pelt here, to be quite honest with you, because he's got to stop again.
Yeah, he's just going to have to go maximum attack now. Maybe he wants to do some overtaking.
Oh, Sabetti's off!
Flag, and that is Sabetti! Sabetti, the race leader, has spun at turn 7, and all his advantage has gone away, and he's lost a ton of positions. He's now just in front of Kovalainen.
He's just rejoined into the path of the Red Bull of Dino as well. Luckily, his car was ghosted, but in terms of rejoining the track was rather dangerous for him. So I wonder if the stewards will look at that in terms of rejoining the track in a dangerous manner. We've just seen Steve pull off a move on Kovalainen, so Kovalainen is down another position. We've got a virtual safety car because someone has had a moment somewhere. I can't quite tell.
Sarking has lost it. It was actually through turn 6, I believe, not turn 7, but he's minus a front wing, so his race not really going to plan, and he's going to have to make another stop to the pits. Joshiwashi pits.
Yeah, and I actually don't blame him, because with him, look at the gap now he's got over Mr. Grumpy, who's coming down the start-finish straight. They have to stick to a delta time. I think Mr. Grumpy will go past his teammate, but I think Joshiwashi's going to rejoin ahead of Luke Red. And he is so.
This is working out absolutely perfectly for Alpine, this is. And Joshiwashi actually called that superbly, like you said. That was a fantastic time to get on some new mediums, and we know the pace he's got from qualifying. He's going to be pushing like his life depends on it now, and he's in such a good position here. Well, I guess the real person to look out for now is Istrai, because if he goes to the end, they're going to have to try and catch up to him and pass him.
I'm sorry to correct you though, Jake, because Joshiwashi has just been given a drive-through penalty for exceeding the delta time at the end of the virtual safety car. So he'll have to take that within the next 3 laps. He'll need to do it as soon as he can, because if a safety car comes out, that's a double whammy, I'm afraid.
It seemed too good to be true for Alpine, and it was such a blow. He'll be so angry inside that cockpit. He'll know that's a... how much control he had over the car is one thing. You know, he may have been a bit unlucky in getting that penalty, but either way, he's going to have to serve a drive-through, and that removes all his advantages. Billy comes into the pits and makes his second stop, so that'll be for a set of mediums. I don't think he'd take on softs at this stage.
So just looking... Yeah, so he's going on to a set of mediums, so that'll be him going to the end of the race. Istrai, in the Haas, now leads the Bahrain Grand Prix. We haven't spoken that much about him all the way through qualifying in the race, quite frankly. and now he's leading the event. And guess what? He's on 11-lap-old hard tyres. He can most certainly go to the end on those.
I tell you what, though, Billy's rejoined higher up than I expected. He's rejoined in P3. Josh Iwashi is serving his drive-through. He's going to rejoin in 10th place, I believe. That's effectively ended his chances of winning this race, you would expect, unless there's yet more safety car drama. But Billy rejoins in 3rd on a fresh set of mediums. He's only 11 seconds off a race lead here. I almost would say at this point, Billy could become the new favourite to win this race, because he's going to be substantially quicker than Istrai, you would imagine, on those fresh mediums.
Just seen Sabetti being overtaken by Dino around the outside into turn 4. So Sabetti down to 6th place is now in a Red Bull sandwich because Steve is all over the gearbox of the Alfa Romeo as they go through turns 9 and 10. Kovalainen right behind those guys as well on the medium. So he's got to make sure he gets past these guys as soon as he can before he comes in for his last pit stop. And now we just wait to see what Istrai decides to do as Inossia has quickly caught up to the back of the Alpine of Mr. Grumpy.
Yeah, and that's going to be... There's only so much Mr. Grumpy's going to be able to do about this, and knowing Mr. Grumpy, how experienced he is, how sensible he is, I don't think this is one he's going to fight too much, because it effectively would probably lose him more time, if anything, and potentially he could stick onto the back of Billy, and it'll bring them both up to the back of the Haas. So, if I was Mr. Grumpy, I wouldn't put up too much of a fight, and it doesn't look like he is doing. He hasn't gone defensive at all. He's given Billy the inside line to turn 1 and get 2nd place, and now it's just going to be a question now, can these two guys catch up to Istrai in the laps that remain?
Well, Mr. Grumpy's got the DRS now. Just seen Dino losing positions though. Sabetti and Steve have got past him. And someone has gone off. Is that Jehoven has gone off there? Yes, it is. At turn 13. That's the 2nd time he's gone off there. Steve's got past Sabetti. They're both side by side into turn 4. And Sabetti keeps hold of 5th place. So great battling there between those guys and keeping it clean.
Yeah, Sabetti looking to recover after that spin. he knows he should kind of be around where Billy and Mr. Grumpy are, but that spin really cost him, but doing some good racing there, and it's an interesting 4-car train here between, includes the 2 Red Bull drivers. Of course, you've got Kovalainen, who's going to have to pit again. Like you say, I can't imagine that's the strategy he chose. I think there's going to be some angry words between Kovalainen and Aston Martin later this evening, let's just say that.
I can imagine so as well. But he's got by the Red Bull of Dino, so that's 1 obstacle out of the way. And now he's got 2 more to get through. But the only problem is, if you get through on these guys, they may be able to repass you with the DRS. So Kovalainen's got to play it sensible here and think, how am I going to go about doing this? Because what he doesn't want to do is just throw away any chance of a points finish here. And he's done well considering where he started. And is that him going defensive? Dino's going into the gearbox of Impro. We've just seen a move from Steve going past Sabetti down in towards turn 1, and it's the Red Bull who goes up into 5th place as Josh Iwashi posts the new fastest up of the race at 1:28.9. Just seen Sabetti thinking about a move back on the Red Bull. Will they go side by side? No. The Alfa Romeo tucks in behind, and Jehovin's race gets even worse. He gets another 3 seconds added to his time penalty, and it's just been overtaken by Gerber as well.
And the more these guys fight from 5th place downwards, the more it's going to help Josh Iwashi close up to them. He's around 7 seconds behind that sort of train of cars right now, but you saw there, fastest lap of the race, he is absolutely flying, and you suspect there's a little bit of rage that's driving him on after the way his race has unfolded. So, I suspect Josh Iwashi's going to be right there with that group of cars by the end of this race, and that could be one hell of a battle. And Mr. Grumpy is doing what I thought he would do. He's just trying to stick within the DRS range of Billy, and it's dragging the pair of them quickly up to the race leader in the Haas. I tell you what, Istrai will be looking at that gap and will be sweating somewhat, because it's decreasing all the time. And if he is going to win this race, he's going to have to make that Haas as wide as possible.
Steve has been penalised for chat limits as well. That's a very costly error for him. 3 seconds it will be at the end of the race. Sabetti under pressure from Kovalainen now, but I don't think Kovalainen's going to be close enough to have a go into turn 1, because Sabetti has also got the DRS. 5 seconds is the gap now between Istrai, who is leading, and Inossia, who is in 2nd place. Mr. Grumpy 3rd, 6 tenths of drift, so he's very much within DRS range. Luke Red is in 4th position.
Yeah, Luke Red kind of in a little bit of his own race now. He's got that gap in front of him to lean pair. What's happened in Sector 2? We've got one of the red... That's Mr. Grumpy, is it?
No, it's Jehovah Finn. It's Jehovah Finn who's gone.
Finn.
Yeah, Jehovah Finn's gone round for another spin. It's just gone down a lap by the race leader, that is Istrai, and Jehovah Finn's gone for another spin again.
Oh,
he's had a...
Kovalainen's gone round on the exit of turn 8. Kovalainen round. I don't know if it was contact with Sabetti or somebody else, but that's just added to his woes.
Well, Kovalainen either way is falling down to 10th place behind Joshi Washi, so he's still in a points scoring position, but his chances of a points finish are diminishing because he still needs to make a second pit stop in this race. There's Mr. Grumpy in third position. I'll say third position, that's actually the Ferrari, I think that is. That's Luke to red in your picture. And Mr. Grumpy's in third place behind Inosia. Still within...
Damage! We've got damage on Dino. Sorry to interrupt you. We've got damage on Dino's Red Bull on the right-hand side. I'll say left-hand side of his front wing. So I wonder why he just lost a place to Gareth Hall. He might have to come into the pits with that damage. That could be pretty hard to drive with. And yeah, he's coming into the pits, so disaster for the Red Bull there. So I wonder, was it maybe Kovalainen and Dino that came together?
It could well be, because given the way Kovalainen had spun off, I doubt it would have been the curb. There must have been contact between the two drivers. In fact, Kovalainen is in now as well for a change of tyres. He'll be absolutely livid with Dino if it is the case. In terms of those two battling, they both go on to a set of soft tyres, so either of those two could maybe go for the fastest lap.
Yeah, and they're still hovering around the top 10 mark, so there's a good opportunity there for that fastest lap point to count for them as well. But I said it was going to happen, and it's been unfolding before our eyes. The gap now under 2 seconds between the leading pair. Istrai is just been gained on so rapidly. I find it hard to see how he's going to defend this one off, but Mr. Grumpy's still hanging around Billy. He's not been dropped at all, so if Billy is going to win this race, this is going to be as cut and dry as maybe he was hoping about 5 laps ago.
So Istrai, who started the race from 9th on the grid, to be fair, so he wasn't starting at the back of the grid, but Mr. Grumpy, you have to say, arguably the driver of the day, considering where he started, where he crashed out of qualifying, but was able to recover very well. We've got quite a number of drivers with penalties at the moment, track limit penalties they are, so that will be applied to their times at the end of the race.
Yeah, and it's crucial now, if you can, to try and avoid those penalties. Billy has a look into turn 1, just lets Istrai know that he's there. I don't really think he needed reminding of that fact, but just looking for a move, trying to find a way through. Has he got enough time before we get to turn 4, DRS open? But no, there's not enough space, but he doesn't need to rush this. But he knows he's got Mr. Grumpy right there as well, so any mistake could prove costly. This is going to be an exciting battle for the lead here. We've got 3 drivers on completely different strategies, and that have had 3 very different races, and they've all come together in this battle for the win.
So Istrai doing very well in the Haas, but I think he's going to find it very difficult to hold off Inosia and Mr. Grumpy. But it just depends how well he decides to take it. Istrai, one of the newcomers, says Inosia goes for the move of the DRS. The Haas didn't get the best drive coming out of turn 10. And Inosia is through into the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Inosia in front, down the inside into turn 11 on the Haas. And he's completed the move. And that could well be the decisive move for the race victory.
Yeah, that could be the move that decides the destination of this Grand Prix. Istrai's got to keep looking in his mirrors though, because he's got Mr. Grumpy's Alpine right behind him. Of course, he will have DRS to defend and maybe attack Billy once again, as we've got Dan WDL, looks like, has had an incident around turn 4 further down the field. But here we go then. Is Istrai going to be close enough to try and mount an attack? He's got Mr. Grumpy to worry about as well. Could he be going 3 wide down to turn 1 here? Here we go. Billy defends on the inside. Has Mr. Grumpy got the line to take the position on Istrai? It looks like he has, but they continue to go side by side through turns 2 and 3. Mr. Grumpy gets P2, and Istrai gets a penalty to boot as well. That could be very important. Istrai down to 3rd with a penalty as well, and Mr. Grumpy there taking advantage of that to move up into P2. And I think Mr. Grumpy still feels like he can win this race.
Yeah, he's got a great chance of doing so, because whilst Inosia's tyres will be beginning to, I wouldn't say fall away, but they won't be as grippy as what they were when they first came on. And someone has gone off. Is that Gareth Hall? No, it's not. It's Jehovah, I think, has gone round again in the Williams. It's off at turn 7, but he stays out of everyone's way.
Yeah, I want to correct something I said very much earlier as well. Mr. Grumpy did not win the Legends Social race, so it was a glitch on the game. He was second in a photo finish across the line, but this is a chance for for him to redeem that here from the back of the grid through 20th on the grid. He's now in second place and looking at a potential win. This could be a last to first masterclass here from the PSGL veteran. And you know, we got 11 newbies on the grid today, but you've got the old guy here, if you like, Grumps, still showing them how it's done.
Well, Mr. Grumpy finished on the podium in third place in Bahrain last season in the PSGL. He's looking to go 2 positions better. He's already 1 better off than last year, but he wants that extra position more. Can he go for it into turn 1? Inossia using some of his ERS to defend on the start-finish straight. He's actually got more ERS in store than the Alpine, which will come to good use for Billy.
No, absolutely, and that is going to be quite crucial actually for Billy, that he's managed to save that ERS to a better extent than Grumpy. That gives him a good defense mechanism once he gets to the straight-ish try. He's just kind of got to drive it home now and see where it lands him after that penalty. He hasn't got the pace of his front 2 now on those aging hard tyres, so it's just about managing things now. As Kovalainen does indeed do the fastest lap, it might be a personal battle between him and Dino as to who gets that fastest lap, and they are both in the top 10, so that does count for an extra point. So good stuff there from the pair of them.
Yeah, and Joshi Washi, after that drive-through penalty he had to take, had it not been for that, he probably would have been leading the race, to be honest with you. But now he's got a battle on his hands to get past Sabetti for 7th position. He's got DRS on the back straight before they go down to turn 11. Joshi Washi pulls out of the slipstream to the inside, and that should be no problem for him there. Yep, he's through. The whole of his car is past the Alfa Romeo. He goes back up into 7th position.
Yeah, nice move for Joshi Washi there.
He goes wide!
Was there a bit of a tap there from the Alfa Romeo? I'm not too sure. It was very, very close, and you can see there's a bit of a car banging going on here between the pair of them. So Betty does it. I think he's let Joshi Washi through by the looks of it. So
yeah,
maybe there's a bit of contact there from the Alfa Romeo driver, and he did the sportsman-like thing and gave a position back. So, you know, fair play to Sabetti on that one.
Yeah, because I think there would have been quite a few words. I didn't quite see whether there was contact or not, but there was definitely some bump drafting on the start-finish straight. Sabetti going to the inside of Joshi Washi, but thought better of it and stays behind. Although Joshi runs wide into turn 1, and that's going to give Sabetti the momentum to try and get alongside, but he's still too far back, I think, to have a go. So I think Joshi has got this move done and dusted, to be quite honest with you. The next one up for him is Gareth Hall in 6th place.
Now, good stuff from Joshi Washi, recovering after the ventures he's had with that drive-through penalty he got. Speeding under the virtual safety car. I tell you what, Mr. Grumpy's looking ever so menacing behind his Aston Martin. We've got a great battle shaping up for the lead here, and it's always more special when you know, as it stands at the moment at least, but neither of them have got penalties, so this is a battle that will be decided out on track. Yeah, and like you say, Billy just losing the edge of those mediums, and Grumpy might be in a better position here to take it, but the ERS, of course, could play a factor too.
Let me ask this question then, Jake. Whose position would you want to be in, Inossia's or Mr. Grumpy's?
I think for me, I'd like to be in Mr. Grumpy's position. You know, it's so... You always want to be on the attack. I feel like as a driver, you always prefer attacking to defending. So I would definitely want to be in Mr. Grumpy's position here. He's in the ideal position in these last few laps to try and take the victory off Billy. Billy feeling the need to go defensive up to turn 1. And does manage to contact, and Grumpy just about keeps the rear end in check. I thought he was fully gone there. Fair play to his car control for that.
He did very well to catch it all together, and to be quite, I think that was rather accidental from Inossia, because I think he did leave him enough space, but he just didn't quite know that Mr. Grumpy was already there within the car's length. So I wouldn't put that down to blaming one driver or the other, if I'm honest. So it's good to see these two still fighting and close to each other. That could have easily ended in tears, but thankfully they're both pointing in the right direction and within half a second of each other. And if they continue fighting amongst themselves, Istrai, who's in 3rd place, he will not take the victory because of his penalty, but actually Luke Red could be in play for the race victory.
Yeah, Luke Red's quietly sort of drifted away from his leading pair over the last sort of 5-10 laps, but he's still in play here if things go on between his leading pairs, which as we've already seen is very possible. We've already had Mr. Grumpy nearly lose the car, so, you know, I think it's going to be round 2 coming up here. It's good that they're still close, like you say, and this could be another opportunity. Oh, Kovalainen's out of the race.
Yeah, he's lost it on the exit.
7.
Yeah, so he will not keep the point for the fastest lap because he's out of the race. Kovalainen, yet another retirement from this Bahrain Grand Prix. Can his teammate hold on to the race lead here? Because Mr. Grumpy has got DRS on the start-finish straight. Which way is Inossi going to go here? He's going to go to the right. Holds his line low, covers his line low. That's very smart driving there from Billy as he holds his line into turn 1. No contact made on the exit, and they will do battle once more on the exit of turn 3. Mr. Grumpy with DRS into the slipstream of the Aston Martin. Now he's going to go to the outside like we've seen other drivers do earlier. Not quite so there, but he's able to do the switch back on the exit of turn 4. Mr. Grumpy not alongside the Aston Martin. Inossia stays ahead. Oh, Mr. Grumpy got caught out on the curbs there and falls back a little bit from the Aston Martin.
Yeah, it can be so easy when you're deep in combat like that to just lose concentration for a moment, take too much curb. We got Luke 2 Red has had an issue through turn 7, so we talked about him being a quiet man of this field, just drifting back, but his hopes of the win have gone up in smoke around turn 7. He's had a spin and he's dropped all the way down to P7.
And can you believe it as well? Should Inossia and Mr. Grumpy fall off the road together, Gareth Hall, of all people, could be in play for the race victory.
It's just incredible. We've got another car struggling. That's just due up. That's due up in just struggling at the back. Unfortunately, it's so difficult to tell apart certain cars on the mini-map because we've got several shades of blue now on the mini-map, so it can be confusing between like the likes of Alpine and Williams.
Yeah. Here we go then. One last time on the start-finish straight. Can Mr. Grumpy get the job done? Into turn 1. We're right on board with the Alpine now. Which way is Inossi going to go? He's going to go to the right like he did so last time. Into turn 1. Covers his line though. This is very smart driving from Inossi so far. Now, Mr. Grumpy, can he get into the switch and get good drive coming out of turn 3? DRS is open on the Alpine. He's not close enough to have a go there, so Inossia should be able to fend him off between now and the checkered flag, but one mistake from Inossia and the victory will go to Mr. Grumpy.
Yeah, this is going to be nail-biting stuff. We're into the final lap of the opening round, and still, we don't know who's going to cross the line as the first winner of F13. We've got battles going down further down, but I want to stick with this battle for the lead, because it's still anyone's guess. We've got another DRS zone coming up here, so is Mr. Grumpy going to get a good enough exit out of turn 10 and maybe have a go into turn 11? It's not a traditional overtaking spot, but when you're fighting for the lead on the last lap, you might just make it work. Yeah, Mr. Grumpy not close enough to have a go. So that may well be his last chance gone, but never give up until the checkered flag. It's not over until it is over. But the Aston Martin Space is out of the race. Inossia has lost it. With a few corners remaining, that hands the lead to Mr. Grumpy and Alpine. Mr. Grumpy for the back of the field at the start of the race is going to take victory in Bahrain in F13 in the PSGL. Mr. Grumpy, in the unlikeliest of circumstances, wins the Bahrain Grand Prix in Sakhir. Now, who's going to take second place? I think it's going to be Istrai because Steve has picked up another time penalty. Gareth Hall's going to miss out on second, so Istrai is second. Gareth Hall is third. Josh Iwashi up to fourth. Steve is fifth with the time penalty applied. Luke Red sixth. Sabetti seventh. Dino is eighth. What drama on the last lap, Jake Warrior, to Inossia. Wow, just wow. I cannot believe on the very final lap of the race that Billy has lost it through turn 12, and he must have thought he's done all the hard work at that point. The win was in the bag, but he just loses it through turn 12. Mr. Grumpy probably couldn't believe what he was seeing, but he's quite happy to take the spoils. And we're talking about Billy winning this race just about 30 seconds ago. He's going to go away from Bahrain empty-handed. He will be gutted. But like you say, from the back of a grid, Mr. Grumpy, just wow, what an incredible performance. This might be the easiest driver of the day vote I've ever had to give. Yeah, I could agree with you more. Lennon the man coming out in 9th place, picking up a couple of points. Gerber in 10th for Mercedes. Sarking will be 11th. Dan will be 12th. In those who will be classified 13th, Jehovin will be classified as a lap down in 14th place. What drama, I have to say. It was incredible to watch. And I just don't know where to begin with that. I mean, what a dreadful last few laps for the Aston Martin team. Kovalainen crashing out with 3 laps remaining, spinning at turn 7, and Inossia, of all drivers, losing it at turn 12, going into the barrier and ending his race on the spot. But Mr. Grumpy, I couldn't agree with you more, Jake. He is most certainly my driver of the day. Yeah, just brilliant from Mr. Grumpy, showing all his experience, and he'll be feeling almost right in some of the wrongs of the Legends Social last week, where he was cruelly denied the victory. He's got it here tonight, but you can't help but feel just a little bit sorry for Billy and the entire Aston Martin team. Otmar Safnauer must have his head in his hands right now. It's looking like a great double points finish for the team, and all of a sudden they're going away from this race with absolutely nothing. You just couldn't write a better script than what we've just saw.
So here's your race result then. Mr. Grumpy takes the 16 points. Istrai is second. Ahead of Gareth Hole and Josh Iwashi in fourth place. Steve is fifth. Ahead of Luke Sered. Sabetti is seventh. Ahead of Dino in eighth. Lennon is ninth. And Gerber running out your top 10 point scorers. Sarking is 11th. Ahead of Dan. Inosia classified 13th. Jehovin, the last of the finishers, on the road in 14th place. Kovalainen is also classified in 15th place. Tomo Jr. out of the race. What could have been for him, and also for Mileham as well. And Clausen. Cameron Rules also crashed out on circuit. 53 Mo crashed out on that one. And no driver got the fastest up of the race because Kovalainen crashed out towards the end, so he didn't finish in the top 10. Jake, what a race for the F13. What a start for the new division in the PSGL.
Just wow, what we expected drama, but my goodness, we got it. And just looking at the point scorers, out of the top 8 qualifiers, only 2 of them finished in the points. That's just how crazy this race was. And well, we had the ultimate story from the back of a grid to winning. Mr. Grumpy did it. He kept his head when everyone around him was losing theirs. I mean, if that's what the season opener has just brought us, I cannot wait to see what we have in store over the next 12 weeks.
It reiterates my point earlier. It is never over until the checker flag. You never give up you give it all right to the very end. And I really can't wait for the next round to come up in France in a week's time. And as far as the championship is concerned, well, after it being round 1, it's the race winner, Mr. Grumpy, who leads by 4 points over Istrai in second place. Jake, thank you for your company. It's been a huge privilege in my debut appearance for the PSGL, and what a race it has been. And we can't wait to do it all over again in a week's time. Do say it's not over though for tonight in the PSGL, because there is the F12 race as well that's just got underway for qualifying as well, Mr. Warrior.
Yeah, and I'm sure as well a lot of you will be tuning in as well. I'll be currently tuned into the PCF1 tier, which is going on right now as well. So we've got so much more racing action to come. Not just tonight, we've got going into the weekend. We've got the other PlayStation tiers happening on Sunday and Monday as well. So lots to look out for on a PSGL YouTube channel. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. There's going to be so much more amazing racing to come over the next few months. And yeah, what a way to kick it off tonight. That is a race result, Mr. Grumpy winning, of course, pending any stewards' inquiries. But I don't think there's anything that's going to deny Mr. Grumpy his moment tonight. No, I don't think there's going to be anything to deprive Mr. Grumpy of his race victory. He absolutely deserved it, to be quite honest with you. He got the strategy right as well. Brilliant performance from him. Well, thank you to everyone that's been joining us. Do make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the PSGL channel. It's been ever increasing in terms of the number of viewers and subscribers. Do make sure you are one of those subscribing to the channel itself. Jake, thank you for your company as well. It's been brilliant being on board with you tonight, and I can't wait to do it again next week. The next F13 race in the PSGL will be in a week's time at Paul Ricard, 7 p.m. British Summer Time. I'm Tom Cairns, and I'll speak to you again soon when the PSGL returns.